On the 1st of January 2025, Poland assumed the presidency of the EU Council, stepping into a pivotal role of the start of the new European Commission. This is a unique opportunity for Poland to ensure its perspective is heard and to shape the agenda for the years to come. Today, we'll discuss how Poland's priorities and vision can address challenges like security and unity, drawing insights from the Better Europe report by the Center for International Relations Foundation. Joining me is Dr. Małgorzata Bonikowska, President of CIR, to share her thoughts on what Poland's leadership mean for Europe's future.
We have openly information war with Russia, and maybe not only with Russia. The West is really much threatened by other patterns of ruling, for example, China. Polish presidency to the EU can be a little bit of help.
One thing that you state in the report is that actually the European Union, it's not the goal itself, it's actually a tool to achieve other goals. And of course, as we are 27 member states, what goals do you see today? After COVID, which also proves some healthcare sector turbulences. Now, of course, the geopolitical situation that is really difficult. So do you think that today we really have the goals that could unite all the member states and give us a space to really plan and make the next steps toward one given strategy?
That's a very good question. I believe we may discuss where we go, but I am not so sure we now see it so clearly. I think the Polish presidency to the EU can be a little bit of help because we put on the table security as a major challenge. Security not only in military sense, but also in other domains, security of external world, but security, internal security, energy security, food security, economic security, civil society security. So all that health security means that Europe is really feeling unsecure today. And the European project was the best of this European project history was in the 90s, where Europe didn't feel any threat, actually. There were good times. Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. Then Americans were leading the world, and the West was very kind of happy that Cold War is over. Poland was extremely happy to be able finally to, join the West, where we think we have always belonged. But now it's not the case. Now the West is really much threatened by other patterns of ruling. For example, China is a very, very powerful economy without being democracy at all. So it's a lot to think about. Democracies can also prove that they work well. So for the European Union as a concept, invented, by the way, as we have it right now in the 90s by the Maastricht Treaty, with this perspective of maybe one day founding a confederation of federation state, which failed in 2005 by 2 referenda in France and in the Netherlands, so in the EU core again. Mm-hmm. We don't have any appetite to build any state anymore, but we are confronted with the states. The United States is a federal state. It's our friend, it's our potential, it's like big brother, our ally, but in the same time, under Donald Trump can be also a problem. And not always American and European interests go together. So we discuss strategic autonomy, but what does it mean? We also have to figure it out, because we cannot do without the Americans for example, in security domain or in the ITC sector. But in the same time, we have Asian powers rising. So the EU has to project, not only in the short term, like we do, has been a while we have been doing, from crisis to another crisis, to a third crisis, etc. Since, economic crisis, then migration crisis, then Crimea and behavior of Russia, which was very difficult. Then we had pandemic, then again war. All that brought us to the conclusion that it's like a crisis management all the time. But where is the strategic thinking? So our ship has to go somewhere. We cannot just go around because of the storm. So the strategic objective is needed to put, and could be, for example, that we will build ways internally to better defend Europe from all the threats, not only in the military sense, because here we have NATO, but in all other senses. And I think that's a very important goal. If we put such a goal in front of us ahead, it's a work for years to come. Another one, or one combined with the previous one, could be enlargement. It will be, if it happens, it will be a very important milestone in the European Union history if we enlarge with Ukraine, Moldova, and Balkan states. But this is a long-term projection because we all know Ukraine is having a war and Russia is not giving up at all. So it's really a challenge. However, without putting these strategic objectives, we'll not be able to take right decisions in a short term neither. So you are absolutely right. The European Union needs a strategic objective. It's like for the ship, a port where we are sailing.
Yeah, but sometimes there are many different ways to get to the same point.
Absolutely, but we have to know where we go.
Yeah, well, so from what you are saying, and also, of course, because of the security as a topic, let's say an umbrella topic for many different areas, I think it's also maybe an understanding that internally we can differ, but outside we should be as one, right? Especially in this global competitiveness, the race between the Asian countries and United States. But on the other hand, we still have quite a big domestic market in terms of, I don't know, 450 million citizens, yes, with quite good purchasing power. So that's also in this global appetite is something significant.
But that's the challenge for the European Union per se, because European Union is like a hybrid structure, you know? Everything is hybrid today. Maybe it's we constructed something earlier which fits well into this reality. But hybrid means that we are a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Meaning, as you rightly said, in the economic terms, as a market, as a trade policy, as custom, we are like one. We are operating like one country with some difficulties with a single market, for example, but we are treated like one economy.
In the global perception.
In the global perspective, but also internally, we don't talk about export-import within the EU. We talk about, you know, internal movement of goods, capital. It's free, by the way, no barriers, nothing. So we have to improve that to catch up with e-market, so all the reality of 21st century and e-commerce and all these new possibilities of buying and selling online. We also have some barriers we have to work on, for example, linguistic barrier, because European Union is composed of 27 member states, meaning also several languages. So it's in service is not so easy. However, it's altogether still 15% of global GDP, which is an important power. And of course, by having a common trade policy, really common, meaning that the European Commission, our common institution, for example, negotiates in the name of all the 27 free trade agreements, like with Mercosur, for example, which is now controversial, but that shows if we are really united, we operate like one. If we buy together like we bought vaccines,
yes.
That is very effective because the prices are cheaper and we are treated, you know, by the companies, by big giants, very seriously. So this is the common space, which we can say it's like almost a state. But in many other domains, sectors of activities of governments, we operate like 27 different states. We try to coordinate, but we divide responsibilities between the governments and the EU institutions. By the way, in every EU institution, there is also influence of every single member state, of course, because it's a common organization. But still, the voices of capitals are crucial, and we still have domains where the European Union doesn't really have much to say, like, for example, healthcare. So we have to decide how we want to continue this project in the future.
So speaking of the moment where we are now, so Poland has just took over the presidency of the EU Council. Donald Tusk is a person recognized in European Union by most, not only politicians, but also, I believe, EU citizens. Actually, we have also a representative in the European Commission, Kaja Kallas, who is also from our part of Europe. So what does it all give us? What chance do we have now in this upcoming 6 months? What we should actually put on the table, what we should fight for, what we should maybe convince others to?
Now Poland wants really to contribute not only to the discussion about the EU's future, but also to the current developments of what we are doing together. And you mentioned our Prime Minister. Actually, it's the longest serving person in the European Council, meaning the institution who leads the EU as far as the political decisions. Donald Tusk was the Prime Minister of Poland 2007-2014, but then he became a president of the European Council, so in a different role, but he remained in the same institution. And then he took over again as a Prime Minister of Poland. So we all together have somebody who knows how this institution works and who knows very well the EU everyday life. It's the longest serving person in the EU Council, in the European Council, even longer than Viktor Orban, who is constantly Prime Minister of Hungary since 2010. So this shows that in a way, of course, Poland is not Germany, but he a little bit replaces the feelings we had to Angela Merkel at that time, in a sense that there was a politician, a leader who in every single difficult situation was able to build the compromise. We can discuss if Angela Merkel did it, in a good way, or if she committed mistakes, definitely many. But for the EU in the crisis, as it used to be, she played a very constructive role. So I think Donald Tusk can play this role now with the agenda of security. Many other countries, especially the Baltic Sea countries, share with Poland the perception of threat from Russia. And I think what we try to put on the table now during the Polish presidency is that the Eastern flank perception should be the European perception. It is not only our feeling, it should be generally the European feeling that good times are over. We are at war. Europe is at war, not physically in the military terms, but we are at war in the terms of internal threats. We are constantly attacked in a cyberspace. Poland, unofficially, we know that it's over 300 attacks per day. We are constantly attacked in the information space. We have openly information war with Russia, and maybe not only with Russia. Plus, I think we would like to use this presidency as Poland for the political marketing. It's not only core politics, but also political marketing to show that it's not only in the EU, Berlin and Paris, it's also Warsaw. And we will have 300 different meetings during the Polish presidency in 6 months. Many of these meetings, even informal councils of ministers meetings, will happen in Poland, especially in Warsaw. So there will be many citizens of the EU countries coming to Poland. So it's a very good opportunity to show us. Poland has changed enormously during not only 20, but all 35 years. And those people who have not been to Poland, they will be really surprised to see where we are.
That's what I wanted to say. Everyone who comes to Poland, and it's not only Warsaw, really Krakow, Wrocław,
everywhere.
All around. We have really many major cities.
So it's an opportunity to attract visitors, mainly from the EU, but not only. And also out of the European Union, we would like to stress the fact that Poland is leading the EU. And we would like to, for example, talk about it during Davos World Economic Forum in Switzerland. Switzerland is not in the European Union, but it's in the heart of Europe. So it's a very good platform. We would like also to be a little bit more visible in the UK, which left the EU in the US and also in countries of G20, such as China or India. So it's an opportunity to spot Poland, to stress that Poland is an important country in the EU. Not everybody would know that Poland is the 5th largest EU member state today, and it's the 6th largest EU economy with appetite to be better. We are
Hunger
more
for success.
Yes, we are more wealthy than Portugal already, but we would love to follow the case of Ireland. Where Ireland joined the EU, the European communities in 1973, was the poorest member state. And today is a net payer, is one of the wealthiest states where people, the purchasing power, it's the highest, meaning it's not only the country is wealthy, there are also wealthy people. Poland still has a long way to go. We are looking at Spain because it's a country of similar size to us, around 40 million people, and also size-wise, as far as territory is similar. So we are still not at that level, but definitely we have all the chances to be there one day. So it's hard work, but the most important is to lead during the 6 months in an operational way. That's a very huge task for the Polish administration, which is definitely prepared for this. There is no doubt, no one questions that Poland is able to do it perfectly well. But we have also 53, if I'm not mistaken, legal procedures to take over from Hungarians to continue, meaning there are different legal acts under preparation in different sectors, for example, healthcare, energy, climate, economy, etc. So Poland has to speed up these procedures, and we would like to conclude the presidency the end of June with some concrete results to be able to stress that it's not only that Poland did the meetings, but it's also that the meetings ended up with some results.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Davos, and I remember from last year Davos, one of the interesting reports by McKinsey was about competitiveness. But what I remember from this report is that we have to understand that competition and cooperation are not, two aspects of one linear line. It's just that, you can compete and cooperate at the same time. So meaning that it's completely changes the mindset toward that, there are certain areas where we can compete, and that's fine. But there are others where we can cooperate. So I think that that's something that actually Poland will try to achieve now.
Yes, you are right.
Encouraging people that, there are certain elements that we should gather to, and find a way how we can work. And security seems to be, quite obvious choice.
But it's also something else, we could put a hypothesis that maybe in 2004, 7 and 13, politically speaking, the EU enlarged. But mentally, the Western elites, the Western politicians, were not ready at that moment to treat these countries equally. We were like children in the family. Now we are 20 years old, grown up. And I think this family of 27 has to learn to function in a different way, that the voice of everyone is taken into consideration. And I think European Union understands, especially the Western countries, especially the EU core, France and Germany, that there were some issues Central Eastern European countries were mentioning, and the EU was not following, especially the perception of Russia, the controversies around Nord Stream 2, all these deals in strategic sectors. So I think they have this lesson that, okay, maybe it was a mistake, we haven't listened. Maybe now it's better to take really seriously into consideration what these countries are telling us. It's not easy because Western Europe was a project started in the 50s. European communities were starting in the 50s. So the EU core is used to have this internal smaller club. Mm-hmm. But now the family is larger. So I think mentally speaking, we have this moment where also the older members of family have to adapt to the reality and try to prepare the next enlargement in a much larger round table. And I think that's the only way to really find a way out of our current problems. Because as I said, with age, you also lose energy. 70 years in the European communities and then European Union is a long time. Imagine a 70-year-old member of your family who knows always better what to do and who is not, so difficult to convince. But still, the new energy comes from younger generations. So it's the same in this project. The EU's future will definitely depend on a mix of the experience and some older ways of doing things, plus younger members with younger creative mindset without so much willingness to repeat the older models, maybe with opportunity to create
and
something
innovate.
new and innovate. Exactly. And the EU as a project definitely needs corrections and innovations, and that's why we put this report on the table. Better Europe.
Fantastic. Well, my conclusion would be that actually the values that EU always, emphasize, especially on the social side, which is diversity, inclusion, and equity, should be at the heart of all the actions that are upcoming to make the European Union stronger and perform better, not only internally, but also globally.
Absolutely. And internal competitiveness, it's like helping maybe because we can become stronger, each of our countries, but we have to admit that globally, we shouldn't compete. Globally, we should really answer as one. This is the biggest challenge for our next 2 decades, I guess.
So even if we will agree to this point, that will be a major step to the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the discussion. It was
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.